I don't know if they can see us. They can. Oh, we're good.
That's good. A proper pint. With a
For two proper bloods.
For two proper blokes. How British does he look? Doesn't he look like a Beatle?
Look like a Beatle.
Yeah. I went with Baroque core for my fit today.
You look more British than I do, and I was trying. I was trying to look British.
You're British maxing.
Yeah, I was Brit maxing. But Brit maxing. Yeah. When you're maxing your British output.
We're just eating beer right now.
I know. It's 8 p.m.
Beer for breakfast.
I have not eaten yet today, and my first meal of the day is a proper pint.
True Brit maxing.
Yeah. Day in the life of a true Brexit geezer. How much you guys hate that, the accent?
That video's great.
Oh, that video is amazing, yeah. Isn't she lovely? Susan.
Meet the wife, Susan.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I love gammons. It's my favorite. I love hogs of every variety, and there is a universality to it where I feel like regardless of ethnicity, background, there's always a universality to the hogs in my experience. And I'm fascinated with them, if you know what I mean.
I'm
sorry, I call it right wing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gammons, but international.
Yeah.
So not necessarily old.
Yeah.
Gammons are like right wing.
You don't know what gammons are?
It's not like a universal thing. I think most people would in the UK.
I know more about British culture than a British person. That's crazy. That's crazy. Cheers.
So, yeah, we're good.
To fish and chips.
So fish and chips, which we are not having. We're just having beers for breakfast.
Hell yeah. This is right. Okay, so what else? What else did you guys want to debate that was left on the table? Let's go. Fire them at me.
All right. No, actually.
I was going to ask you about the Cambridge Union, about whether you think, like we brand ourselves as a free speech society. We have you, we have Ben Shapiro. Do you think that is a legitimate stance to have, or is that dangerous?
I mean, it does feel like
To be rude.
no. It does feel like you guys at least like abide by the principles of it, because you know what I hate? I hate people like Ben Shapiro or Barry Weiss that make a career out of being free speech warriors, but then they also, like Barry Weiss especially, has spent so much of her early career going after campus protesters, like Palestine campus protesters, when like, in terms of real egregious violations of free speech in the United States of America, Israel-related conversations are the singular, like, that is the one thing that is directly in contravention with U.S. law. It is unconstitutional. And it's really interesting because people, Dianne Feinstein, before she passed away, and Bernie Sanders were like the two congresspersons that always criticized it. They were like, this is a violation of the First Amendment. Like, you can't do these BDS laws. This is completely unacceptable. And I hate that people that advocate for that kind of restriction on speech then basically hail themselves as free speech champions. Because I think most people love cancel culture, most people love identity politics, and most people don't like free speech. They just, they have the boundary of permissibility, like permissible speech. And you go outside of it, they're like, oh no, I don't want you. You should lose your job. And it doesn't seem like you guys do that, at least, but I don't know. I don't think you guys have had like any Nazis on, right?
Well,
recently.
A few years ago, we banned a guy. The debate was this house believes there's no such thing as poor taste, and the guy started his speech by doing a Hitler impression. So arguably, there is such a thing as bad taste.
That counts as bad taste.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is, so we got a lot of flack last year when we hosted Ben Shapiro and Peter Thiel. Obviously, Peter Thiel, sort of founder of Palantir. But then the same people that celebrated us for platforming these people then criticise us for platforming you online.
Yeah, of course.
But no, we want to platform you and them. We're supposedly an apolitical society, as Alex says.
I don't think there's a real. I mean,
Do you think?
I don't think there's any such thing. I don't think there's no such thing.
Yeah.
That's why I say, like, I think everyone has their own personal standard, and as long as you're like relatively reasonable, it's fine. Like, I'll tell you this much: I get yelled at a lot. People constantly are like, "Oh, you're anti-Semitic." They always say that, and anyone that has ever watched even like 10 minutes of my broadcast knows that not only is that the most untrue thing, I am actively, consistently combating anti-Semitism for like the past 10 years. But I think that many mainstream media outlets that normally would hear that and go, "Oh, I'm not going to touch this person," kind of come at it with a level of charity where they're like, "We kind of know why people are saying this. They're saying this because of your opinions on Israel." And I think that is like the standard in general. Most people are, unless they're like super ideologically invested, most people come at conversations from a place of charity, especially in person, and they kind of understand that, like, even if they lean into the smears themselves, they kind of understand deep down inside that maybe it's not fully valid. Having said that, there are definitely like very real, rabid, vicious anti-Semitic people, and in terms of like offering them a space to speak, I have a very different attitude than many other people do, especially like in the debate sphere online, where I see no valid reason to ever platform a Nazi unless they've already gotten mainstream recognition and they have to be tackled. Like, their ideas have to be ridiculed and addressed and undermined. Because if you don't do that, I mean, if you're just platforming any Nazi whatsoever, what's up?
Can I take a photo with you?
Yeah.
One question I'll ask, sort of following up on that. There's been a lot of issues within the sort of the English justice system. From the river to the sea, Ben Shapiro defines that as calling for a genocide. There's also been, when sort of there's marches in London, for example, there's actually been, like, the lawyers don't know what to do, how to sort of...
Yeah.
Do you think that's a call for genocide? I mean, no. I mean, outside of the rhetoric, of course, but rhetorically, what do you think are the implications of that? And specifically, I know obviously you mostly deal with the US, but in the English case, because there's been so many legal issues with barristers and lawyers actually not knowing how to prosecute or not prosecute. Where do you sit with that? And it'd be great to sort of hear like an explanation, I suppose.
I think it's so disingenuous, I think, to be like, your emancipatory slogan is actually, I am going to frame it in the worst, least charitable way possible. And I mean, people do it all the time. Right wingers do this all the time. Like, I treat, the thing that a lot of people don't understand is, like, I look at Israel as a right-wing country. Yeah. Like, Israel as I see it as like a country that is at the I wouldn't even say precipice of fascism. I think like they are very clearly in the throes of fascism. So a lot of the defense I interpret in the exact same way that I interpret right-wing defenses. So one thing that happened quite frequently in America was people would always say, like, "Oh, Black Lives Matters means like you want to kill white people," and they tried to do that, and everyone was like, "Come on, man, shut the fuck up." And then they tried to do the All Lives Matter shit, and it didn't really work. But when it comes to Israel, because there is a valid claim, because anti-Semitism is a real bigotry, unlike anti-white racism, which is not a real bigotry, right? Because there's a valid claim there, I think a lot of people like openly conflate real anti-Semitism with things such as "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," not really recognizing what that does in the way that people interpret anti-Semitism in general. I think that that has a really damaging impact on Jewish people in the Western world in general, especially at a time when anti-Semitism is on the rise, partially as a consequence of exactly what I'm talking about, when people go, any kind of slogan against Israel is anti-Semitic. If you're against Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Israel's demographic concerns, you're anti-Semitic if you don't recognize that. And I think people see right from wrong. They look at it, they're like, well, I don't like babies being murdered, especially with my tax dollars. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. And if you think that's anti-Semitic, most people don't have the capacity to go, oh, they're falsely claiming that this has anything to do with Judaism. They just go, okay, I'm anti-Semitic then. And that's what's really terrifying. And I've seen this happen in America. I've seen like reasonable people become more anti-Semitic as a consequence of this, because they look at it and they're like, well, everyone keeps telling me that Jake Tapper on CNN is saying, like, if you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semitic. I guess I'm anti-Semitic then. Yeah. And that's really scary. It's not scary if you're Israel, because you want Jewish people to come and live in Israel. So it suits your purpose, it suits your demographic purposes. But it's actually very scary for the millions of Jewish people that live in the Western world that are now, they have to just like sit in this weird paradigm where they have to be recipients of anti-Semitic hatred for things that they didn't do, things that they don't even advocate for. Yeah. So I don't know. It's really
interrupt. I'm sure you're indie. We're real big fans.
Wait, can I just ask them? Oh,
yeah.
Is someone talking? Okay. Well, can I just ask, how do you think that the right maintains some kind of level of consistency, or like espouses to have that logical consistency, insofar as they lament the existence of systemic racism? Any modality of DEI is considered woke nonsense that isn't backed by any evidence. That essentially ethnic minorities are imprisonable because they commit more crimes, and that's as far as the analysis goes. And yet there's this in-depth contradiction there, like given that they don't believe any of that when it comes to anti-Semitism. Like, how do you think that that the right maintains that? Because surely that's bound to crumble at some point, but it seems that for 60 years it kind of hasn't.
I think it is. I mean, they use it to their advantage. If they could do anti-white racism as a real movement, they would do it. So, like, currently as it stands, the only people that do like white identitarian politics are neo-Nazis, like open Nazis.
Yeah.
But if that was more acceptable, I think a lot more right-wingers would do it too. And things do change, like environments do change, cultures do change in that regard, especially when it benefits the pre-existing hierarchies. And obviously white supremacy is a pre-existing hierarchy. So any day now, that could be a legitimate thing. I guess I compare it to Korea a little bit. South Korea has a massive misogyny problem.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is insane. Like 70% of South Korean men under the age of 35 say that like anti-male sexism is a real problem. And I think it's like 79% for over the age of 35. That's insane. Like that is the most insane fact I've ever heard. And I think obviously part of that is the draft. The draft plays a role in this.
Yeah.
Like conscription plays a role in this, but still. But that is a attitude that I think most people would not be on board with. But once like enough members of your society are on board with it, all of a sudden you can actually like make initiatives in favor of combating misandry.
Yeah.
And some of the silly things that they've done in that regard is, for example, like this right here. This is a hate speech in South Korea. This means like you have a small penis. Yeah. And South Korean incels have like successfully gotten this banned on League of Legends and in other places. And I think that there was enough momentum. Like there's enough instability, there's enough anger. And when there's enough anger and instability, especially if it favors pre-existing constructs, you can get your message across. And I think people cynically utilize anti-Semitism in that regard, but that's only because they can't use anti-white racism in that regard.
Yeah.
But things might change, and they might start doing that as well. Yeah, but hopefully not yet.
In which case, do you think that the solution to combating those kinds of issues are to alienate those people who have those views, no matter how much of a majority that they make up within any given region? Or do you think the solution is to welcome the fact that they feel disillusioned and try to cater to them in some contexts?
It depends, right? So if someone is entertaining delusions, like, do you entertain it for them?
Exactly.
Like, is that productive? And this is something I think about quite a bit. I have a lot of men in my audience, and one thing that I always stress is that the reason why they feel anxiety and the reason why they feel resentment, the reason why they feel hopeless is systemic problems that they're facing. But also, depending on the level of charitability, or depending on like how insane they are, I will sometimes be like, okay, you're ridiculous, you know? And I think that's important. It's important to put your foot down at certain points and just be like, you're being a silly bitch. Like, wake the fuck up, you know? And as long as someone is earnest and willing to learn and willing to understand why they're angry, I think it's valid. But no, I don't think we should like completely capitulate to the delusions of enough people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to capitulate to like the delusions of people that think that immigrants constitute a grave threat to American national security. A shit ton of people believe that. It's not born out of data. It's completely made up. If you look at the data, it's the exact opposite. Undocumented migrants are responsible for less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens are.
Yeah.
And yet, a shit ton of people believe this false framing. Why do they believe it? Because Republicans advance it all the time.
Yeah.
So, if someone comes into my community and says, like, nah, you don't understand, like, they're rapists, they're murderers, I'm not gonna allow that because it's just simply untrue.
Right.
It is not dissimilar to, like, do you guys know Fresh and Fit?
Oh my god, too well.
Yeah. So Myron, the guy who's a former Fed, he's always like in my DMs, or not DMs, in my mentions, being like, they're coming after you. The Jews are coming after you. Just like, why don't you just admit that it's the Jews? And it's like, in the simplest terms, it's just not true. You know what I mean? Like what do you want me to do? Just like lie? I don't understand it. When people get mad at me for that, I don't understand what they expect from me. I'm like, I don't agree with you. Like, I'm not secretly hiding my opinion. I just don't agree with you. I think you're wrong, and I think you're delusional, and I think you're a fucking moron.
Yeah. I think
So, sometimes you gotta put your foot down, is what I mean.
Yeah, but I just worry because at the point at which this becomes some kind of international consensus that is also a lie, how on earth are you going to, like, rectify that? Oh, I think someone wants a picture.
Oh, what's up?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Big fan.
All right. Well, he had a question.
Well, I'm just asking.
I don't want to interrupt.
Well, then you do deal with politics.
But no, he had a question first.
Okay. Yeah, so some people have careers online. I'm
a politics student, so I can make this case that
I was going to say.
everything you do is
So
politics. Sorry.
I was just intrigued because you all seem gathered around.
Yeah.
I was like, sorry, I'm very much interrupting right now.
No, it's all
No
good.
problem.
I was just like, you seem to be the front of mind of
No, I'm just here. I'm visiting for the Cambridge Union.
Oh, were you speaking?
Yeah,
Well, how did it go?
pretty good.
I think it went well. It's a mixed bag sometimes.
Okay. No,
I think
go ahead.
generally
Wait. Why do you think it's a mixed bag?
Why do I think it's a mixed bag?
Yeah.
Well, it generally depends on the speaker in the audience.
Oh, okay, fair. Yeah.
Which college are you at?
St Edmunds.
St Edmunds. So, wait, what do you study?
PhD history.
PhD history. So do you attend the union regularly?
Not really.
What events do you like and what events don't you like?
Right, so what position do you hold at the union?
President.
There you go. Right, so, yeah. That was fairly honest. Well, I mean,
Who was a speaker that you liked recently?
the speaker that I liked recently, Pamela Anderson, was quite good the other week.
Pamela Anderson was a speaker?
Pamela Anderson.
Maybe the other year.
What was she talking about? Julian Assange?
How long have you been in Cambridge?
4 years.
So yeah, longer than all of us. We don't remember Pamela Anderson.
Pamela Anderson, what was she talking about? Julian Assange?
We had Stella Assange come last year, actually.
Yeah, she's a big free Assange, or was a big free Assange advocate.
We also had Julian Assange came in by telepod.
Oh wow!
We held a referendum as to whether to do it or not.
Wait, really?
This was years ago. Yeah.
Why was that See, okay. Think about why that's controversial. Why is that even remotely controversial to have Julian Assange
I think
as a speaker?
I think it's a shame that we had a referendum about that. I
Yeah.
don't think we wouldn't now. It really can come down to the.
No, but it's important to understand where that controversy even comes from.
Yeah.
The reason why it's controversial is because it goes against the interests of the American State Department. And And I think that's where it comes from originally, because like there is no other world in which you would consider to be like where you would even remotely consider someone who is a leaker or someone who's like engaged in like hacked material or any number of different things that Julian Assange was criticized for doing. You would never look at that guy and be like, that's a bad guy. I don't even know if we should have him on. And I think that plays a big role in the way that we interpret the world, whether we recognize it or not. Even if you're against a lot of the stuff that America says and does, I think without realizing we succumb to a lot of power dynamics and a lot of resentment that is instilled upon us through social conditioning, and we don't really examine it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of truth to that. I think,
Anyway, what was your question?
It was kind of going back to what you said earlier about like platforming Nazis and saying about like Nick Fuentes and stuff, and before you would just kind of like not even mention his name and try and ignore him, but then obviously when the election came he became much more popular. So like at what point do you kind of think like, do I talk about them or do I just keep them nameless kind of thing?
It's always going to be a case-by-case basis. I don't think he's still there. But I think the only time where I talked about Richard Spencer was when he got prominent coverage from the New York Times. And even then, I was more so criticizing the New York Times for platforming him. So I think that I think that like my thresholds for it is very different than other people. But like, as long as someone is relegated to these like alternative platforms, and these alternative platforms don't have a lot of leeway, they're not like massively consequential, I don't think there's any reason to offer this person a platform, because their primary purpose is not like having a spirited conversation and maybe even changing their minds. Their primary purpose is to propagandize their position. It has nothing to do, like when you have a Nazi on, when you have someone who's ideologically committed to the Nazi project and you offer them a platform, they won already. Win or lose that debate, they already picked at least like 3, 4, 5, 10, maybe 1,000 people to listen to them in a charitable manner. That's their ultimate goal. So that's the reason why I'm very, that's the reason why, like, that's my limit for the most part.
there were other options.
There's Moretti, also Italian. I love Moretti. Amstel, Dutch. But I think Peroni here is probably the best bit.
You had a demographic question. If you here, grab the mic.
So you said earlier in the speech, or no, in the Q&A, and this is a question to learn, not a challenge. You said there was no other nation with demographic concerns or demographic, worries, either sat firmly within the Western bosom. So Singapore has demographics enshrined into law. Han Chinese having to legally be the majority.
Well,
so
China, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, twofold. Would you say that Singapore is firmly within the Western bosom? And two, if not, what do you think of the Han Chinese dominance in Singapore and just within the wider Eastern Asian sphere of influence?
I think Singapore is a good example of that, but it's like somewhere in between. Whereas I think China would not be a good example of that because, one, it's still inappropriate and ridiculous, and also China will suffer from that because ultimately demographic concerns Japan is an even better example of this, where like they don't openly state that they have demographic concerns, but they like very clearly have a Japanese nativist immigration structure, and they're literally suffering as a consequence of that. But you're right. There are other countries. I didn't know that Singapore had it codified in the same way that like Israel has, which is so insane to me. Like saying we don't want any immigration whatsoever or make it like super incredibly hard is one thing, but just openly being like East Jerusalem has to be 69% occupied by Jews is like, to me when I hear that I'm like, that is the most insane thing. Like I can't believe that is a real policy in a country that is directly like an American asset in the region. But I guess we have allegiances with Saudi Arabia, and they have a whole bunch of fucking insane rules and do a metric ton of hurt anyway. So I guess it doesn't really matter for America. That is my point overall.
Yeah, fair enough.
Dude, I went through so many like rural Japanese towns because I like just got back from Japan. I started on the southern point of the islands, and then I moved my way up to Tokyo over like a week, and I passed through so many rural towns, and they're just straight up ghost towns, like just like dead. Unless you're like in Tokyo, Osaka, or Kyoto, like it's just like dead. Like there's a huge population issue.
I think nationalism is inevitably a death cult. Like nationalism always turns into ultra-nationalism, which is inherently a death cult. Like there's no way that you can get out of that problem. You're always going to have a population problem. You're going to develop, you're going to urbanize, and when you develop and you urbanize, you're just not going to repopulate. You're just not going to fuck as much. That's it.
Yeah, true. Where do you see China going in the next 15, 20 years then, regarding that?
I don't know. I think they might be more open-minded to immigration, but who knows? We'll see. I mean, they have very aggressively Hanified every part of China, which was, I think, a massive problem with the USSR. Not to say that China is like ideologically upholding the principles of communism or anything, but I don't know. I don't know what'll happen to the Chinese population, but they also exhibit some of the same problems of all these other developed nations. But because of their starting position not that far ago being so dire, I think that they're still living in their like 90s era almost. Like, you know how America was in the 90s, like the boom? Like that's what China's going through right now. So we'll see what happens. I just don't know. I just don't think you can maintain a nation state that is so vast with any sort of demographic considerations in mind. I don't think it's a successful method at all. I think it inevitably will be. It will inevitably succumb to the same traps that many other fascist countries have found themselves in, where you're like, what are you going to do? Are you going to force births? You know what I mean? Like, look at South Korea. They have no way out of it. At least with China, there's like a level of stability, a level of prosperity, a level of like development that factors into it. But even then, rapid urbanization and rapid development is always going to lower your birth rates, no matter what. And I have not seen a country that has overcome that problem. Maybe there is one.
Singapore is the worst example to ever give in terms of anything ever, because it's like the one consistent exception to most rules. Like a lot of in international relations, we study Singapore as a consistent exception that you cannot be applying any blanket statements to whatsoever. So, for example, Singapore had a dictator who had the best interests of the country at heart. You're never going to say, well, in which case I think the dictator with the best interests of the country at heart is going to make things worse.
Yeah, except Keir Stalin. Put some respect on it.
Why did you say that, by the way?
What?
Why did Keir Stalin?
Oh, I joke. I'm joking. I think it's really funny to think that like this like very conservative Labour Party is somehow Stalinist.
I think there's something about Keir Starmer's name that's just very funny to say wrong. Like
I like Kid Starmer more. But he's like, look, I'm a big Corbyn head, so you know.
Yeah, big up Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, I love Corbyn. I think he's too soft, unfortunately, just like Bernie Sanders was. But you know, I will always have respect for people who are consistently been on the right side of history.
What do you mean too soft?
Jeremy Corbyn?
Yeah, or Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders was far too conciliatory to the Democratic Party. Like, far too conciliatory.
As in, he shouldn't have endorsed as much.
No, that makes sense. I get where he was coming from. I don't agree with it, but I understand where he was coming from. He's an old man. He thinks like if he becomes a junior partner in a coalition. What's up? Yeah.
No,
he said he's Chinese. And I got a lot of mileage in Chinese Twitter.
Oh hell yeah! What's Chinese Twitter?
No, Bilibili.
Oh,
Bilibili.
No, I'm kidding. He didn't say that. I wish.
That's stuff.
Fear and Bilibili.
My dream is to become a
Chinese influencer.
Do you guys know what a white monkey is?
That's what I say.
In China, and they kind of use it. I guess not really in Japan, but in China they have a concept called white monkey. One of my friends was one for Riot back in the day when he used to work at Riot.
Wait, who?
Wow.
Oh.
where you get put into meetings that you're not supposed to in like a Chinese company because you're white. And they're like, see, we have a white guy. Like, this gives us more respect and authority.
I was teaching English in China this summer.
Oh, you were?
I was in a
like Tim Waltz.
I was in a tier 3 Tim Waltz, exactly.
Yeah.
I was in a tier 3 city, and I don't know how it works in the US. In the UK, you have a concept of like Mayfair dolls. So they'll like let people in for free. They give them free drinks all night, and they put them on their Instagram or their WeChats. I'm like, look, we're cool. And I was in this city that was so shit and so like irrelevant. They would like film me and my like. One of them was a girl, so they would be like. They literally like posted on their social media. Look, we have an exotic white, blue-eyed lady, a beautiful lady, shipped in from England. She is here now, and they were like posting that on their fucking social media to like increase their publicity.
Yeah,
it's fucking crazy.
That's my dream. I want to be like my man Ben Norton.
It's time, Hasan. Let's go.
The kids that I was teaching, right? So I was like, just fucking bored. Just draw a picture. They fucking draw this Chinese soldier on top of Japanese corpses.
They hate Japanese people.
When I said, I taught them a debate camp given the union, and I said, okay, give me a motion like this house would. The first thing they say, this house would drop another atomic bomb on China. I was like, fuck, no. This is a 9-year-old, by the way. I'm like, no, something else. And then a 10-year-old student says, this house believes Japan is a Chinese island. These are 9 and 10-year-olds that I was teaching. They're fucking crazy.
Okay. I mean, look, listen, Japanese colonialism was pretty fucking ruthless. I get why they still carry on a lot of resentment. It makes sense. They don't even acknowledge it, by the way. I love Japan. I'm a massive weeb. The fact that they don't even fucking acknowledge any of that is crazy.
The Yasukuni Shrine, where there's like fucking... They didn't like do any... I'm not even going to say live stream what they did, but they just horrible war criminals.
Yeah.
It's like
well, I mean,
like the position of honor in the Yasukuni Shrine.
Okay, but that's America. Like, we came in and we're like, if you give us all the data, the very important like biological and chemical warfare information from Unit 731, Unit 731, like unethical experiments, and we could use those later down.
It smells so good. Sorry.
You'll be fine. We'll give you back your power. You won't get prosecuted.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We gotta head out soon.
Yeah, we gotta head out soon.
Before you do, can I ask? You're coming to Cambridge and the Union, which I think is such an echo chamber place, and like I think it's something that really needs to be acknowledged. Like the fact we are at the most like privileged uni in the country. At least
no, that's awesome.
Yeah. Second, sorry.
Yeah, Oxford's the most privileged.
But like the difference between like streaming and like going to an audience of everyone versus coming to the Union, whereas people who have paid for a membership, gotten into one of the most prestigious unis, has like such a disproportionately high like private school. Like, how does that feel? Like, how can you? Would you go to like a regular university, a university that's not, if they like offered you to?
Yeah, I mean, I don't usually go to any universities at all. This started with like USC because the professor was a big fan of mine.
This is the second one.
This is my second ever like college, like any university tour that I've done. But yeah, of course. I mean, I went to a state school. I did not go to a wealthy school, and I have no problems with that at all. I think it's. I mean, I will go to regular protests. Like, that's usually what I do for the most part. Like, when I went to the DNC, the first day we went to the pro-Palestinian demonstrations outside of DNC. Or in Australia, we went to a Palestinian demonstration in Australia. Like, I don't have a problem meeting people where they're at. I much prefer it, actually. When you go to Cambridge Union, that's when you get a lot of people who hate me. For me, it's like I'm going into the beehive.
Like more recognizable spots.
And it makes sense. Like I get it. If you come from like a relatively wealthy family and you come from a relatively prestigious family, go to a prestigious institution of higher learning, you're going to develop certain resentments and develop certain attitudes that are entirely against the way I view the world. And then you're going to come across like that one last guy who was like, you're rich, but a socialist. I wanted to be like, get your money up, dog. Why are you complaining? Like...
How's it going, bro?
It's good. Hey, what's good, my man?
Yeah, good. How are you?
How you doing?
Good. Technically, it's Turkish.
Do you ever feel like when you're coming to different unis, so you came to Cambridge, and to be fair, all the people here came to see you, but they already know about you, and if they know about you, they already know about your message about Gaza and Palestine. Don't you feel like it would be more beneficial if you went to random places like other unis, where people aren't expecting you, to spread the message even further?
If people invite me, then I would go. But it depends. It depends on like the time I have. Because I stream every day. And I have to, like, there's an opportunity cost to it. Like how much bandwidth I have, how much time I have. That's why I did Cambridge, because I was going to do Oxford anyway. And then when Cambridge asked, I was like, oh yeah, of course. So that's just the way I view it, where I want to. Oh, my mom is calling me. I wanted to, I don't mind going in front of larger audiences that are unfamiliar with me. That's why I do like mainstream media appearances and stuff too. So yeah, I think it's relatively productive. For sure. What are you talking about? Kebab?
We can take you to the best. We can take you to the best kebab spot in the whole of Cambridge. Gardy's. It's heavenly. They make their chili sauce fresh every day.
Let me see what my mom is saying, and then maybe. I love my mom, but she is like this. She really is like this. She will literally go incognito for like hours and then be like, what happened? I don't understand. And it's like, Mom, you put your phone on like do not disturb. I can't hear you. You're not talking to me. She hung up.
Sick.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
I'm
do a
gonna
stand-up,
end it.
yeah.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and MBs, thank you so much for participating in this wonderful adventure. Day 2 of London. We're in Cambridge. What a fantastic time. Bunch of proper lads, proper lassies. Is that the right term? I don't know. Thank you so much for everyone that joined us on the fun. You can show them on the camera. Yeah, thank you so much to Cambridge Union. So far, Cambridge on top. I'm not gonna lie. Like in comparison to Oxford, Cambridge on top. Okay. Thank you so much for your hospitality. This was fantastic, and we'll see you tomorrow. Oxford, unlike Cambridge, is not allowing me to live stream the process, so yeah, boo. Anyway, so I will be live after that process, but we'll be able to do a sit-down, regular live stream. I might have Jimmy the Giant on as well, so we'll see. But I'll see you tomorrow.